Dabba Walla is a game that I saw being demoed at Gen Con 2024. I played it. I clearly liked it enough that I bought my own copy. And I like that games also teach me stuff. I learn new things. I had no idea that there was a specific system of food distribution in Mumbai, and the game depicts precisely that. And the dabbas are these containers here that are used to transport food. So, what we're gonna do in this competitive game, each player will first go around the city and collect food that is being prepared in private homes, and then we'll go around and we sell that food. So the game is divided into two distinct phases, kind of like remind me of for sale. First you acquire the food, and then in the second phase you sell it. I wanted to also show you how the box is organized in these containers that also double as player aids, and so everything is nicely organized. You don't have to 3D print or buy organizers. And the way the game does that, then the containers are also used to form the board, or at least the lids of the containers. As you will see, as you score the game in the second phase, the one when we sell the food, we also you also put the game away as that happens. So everything is being very cleverly designed with an eye to practicality, and also again to, I guess, to preserve resources, because the inserts are also game components. As I was saying, this is part, but not all of it, of the main board. And then at the end of the game, or I should say in the second phase of the game, we flip it and we use this as scoring board, and also to keep track of the fluctuating value of the various kinds of food. These components here, see, these are the lids of the organizer of the various tiles representing the food. They also work, as you can see, as part of the scoring track. And they also add to the board, and the same happens here with the lid of this other organizer. So as you can see, we're gonna have polyominoes representing the various foods, or the various dabbas containers that we're gonna stack on our vehicle, exactly like this guy does. Although mine don't look nearly as reliable and solid as his. So this is the board after you set it up. And we have another container here. And again, you see how this doubles, the lid of the container doubles as a player aid. And here we have various tokens. Especially, we're going to take some ticket tokens that are going to help me teach you the game or show you the game. I'm not going to give you a full tutorial, just going to give you a sense. Another container for the game components, again with the lid used for practical purposes. In each game you'll remove a number of cards based on number of players, and that is printed there. And so dumping things out a little bit here, there you go. We have various kinds of tokens. Each player will have one of these game pieces marking their position on the board as we go around and we collect the food that we will sell later. And then, as I said, there's going to be a number of cards removed, and therefore a number of cards remaining. And these cards are going to be coming from this deck, and we're going to place them in the 6 slots around the board. 6 slots around the board. Again, usually you should have removed some of these cards, but for the purpose of this video, we don't need to do that. And so this is how the board may look like at setup. And you will play the initial phase when players collect food cards and food until the deck is exhausted. So it's very easy to mark when that happens. Each player will also have a vehicle where they stack their food. So each color more connected to a standee has a standard board, a standard vehicle, but then we also have alternative patterns here, and so that's pretty neat. So you have variety there depending on how you want to play the game. Boom. What happens during the first phase of the game is pretty simple. You must move your person around the board, and then you will collect the card of the place where you stop. You must move the character, and usually you can move by one location adjacent in either direction. Say I do that, and I collect that card. You can also spend tickets to move extra locations, but suppose I decide to do that, we're going to replenish that card there. And remember these two containers that I showed you earlier with the tiles, we're gonna collect the corresponding game piece. So for example, here is a 2 yellow, and we collect it from there. Pretty simple. And now I need to stack that on my vehicle, and I'm gonna do that because that's how the game works. And I'm gonna place it right there. Boom. So I wanna stack those tiles there in a way that is tight, neat, and compact, and also a couple of other elements that I'll show you later. I also keep the card with me, so as the game progresses and I collect more tiles, I will also have my little deck of cards that I'm making there. Now, if by stacking tiles, I'm able to complete a chai tea like so, then I collect a token randomly from these tokens here. And if the background, this is kind of like orange here, I save the tile and I'll use it in the second phase of the game when we're scoring. Other tiles have a blue background, there you go, and they will give me an effect right away. Or at least in this phase, for example, this one will give me an extra token of this kind here, and I'll take it from here. I would look for the green one, and I can add it to my stack here. As you build, you do not have to complete a layer entirely before you start the next. I could do that as long as these things are not hanging out that way, because that is kind of weird. And so after a while, maybe this is what happens, and this is what happens, and then in the next level, this is what happens, and so on and so forth until, oh look, I even got a chime, until the deck of cards is exhausted. So each player will have their personal stack, and you will also have a number of cards in your personal deck. That's when we start the second phase of the game. That is when we turn the board to the other side, like so. Like so. Whoop, switching. We're going to place our scoring markers there. We're also going to place these markers here to indicate the value. So we're going to start selling the various, our food one layer at a time. Suppose now it's time for us to sell this layer here that you're seeing here, and everybody else is selling the same layer. Remember, you have these cards and you may have these tokens. So now, looking at our cards and tokens, each player can put down a card and a token as well. Then we'll reveal them, and based on what is indicated on the tokens and on the card, tokens and cards, we change the value. For example, the value of yellow is +1 now because of what I did there. The value of red is +2, and the value of blue is +1. And maybe another player played green +1, yellow +2, and blue +1, for example. Once all cards and tokens can be taken into account and then discarded afterwards, we score. So for example, I'm gonna now yellow, each yellow is worth 3, and so now I score 9 points for yellow. Red, each red is worth 2, so I'm gonna score 12 points for red. Once we score a layer, we take the components, because we need to look at the other ones, and we may as well put them back in the boxes where they belong. And so it's very simple and natural that as you play the game, you're putting the components away. And now we sell this one. So again, each player gets to play a card and if they have it a token, we reveal, we set the value of the various kinds of tiles for this round. We sell that layer, collect money, meaning points, and we continue like this. We continue like this until we have scored points from all possible sources, and at the end of the game, the player with the most points wins the game. I like tile laying games, and this is a game that brings tile laying to the third dimension because you are stacking different mini puzzles, mini Tetris puzzles that you'll be building as you stack those tiles. And it's really nice that, yes, you are gonna work possibly on multiple levels at the same time. From time to time you get stuck, you need that one piece to finish a level. Incidentally, if you do, you can choose to grab a can of paint. It's just a generic one square tile, put it in there. You will lose 2 points at the end of the game for that, because putting paint next to food probably is not super cool, but it's a possibility. So there's a nice little puzzle there with also an interesting trade-off, because as you collect cards, the ones that give you the larger pieces, so with the best chances of having a lot of one color on one layer and therefore scoring well, completing layers, the ones that give you the more pieces, the more square, the largest pieces, are the ones with the fewer icons at the bottom. So you can collect a lot of food of one kind and not have the icons that will allow you to actually make it score well. So there's a very nice trade-off there, very simple, very intuitive puzzle. You don't have to worry about a million rules. The cards have already hardwired the trade-off, the challenge in the game for you. And there is an element of memory. Now, usually I don't play memory when my kids were little, sure, but memory is not one of my favorite game mechanics. But it is an interesting challenge here, as in the second phase of the game, I'm trying to figure out, wait, does the layer before this one has more blue than this one? Because if it has more, that's maybe when I want to play my +1 blue token that I collected earlier. Or maybe there isn't any blue underneath, and so that means that if I don't play my blue now, it's going to be useless later. So the two phases of the game work very well together. They flow one into the other very nicely, because in the first one, as you are building your stack of food, you're also preparing sets of cards that you will use in the second part. So I'm not always a fan of games that have such a big split. They almost feel like too many games, but in this case it did feel like two sides of the same coin. It did feel like it was very organic and very smooth. So I enjoy gameplay a great deal. Again, I liked it at Gen Con. I purchased a copy, obviously, then I played it more at home with my family. I played it with my wife, who's not into complicated games, and she prefers this kind of like gateway game because gameplay is very simple, very intuitive. And so this one is a family game in the truest sense, meaning you can have different generations of players playing it together, and they're all having a good time because they all have an interesting challenge, decisions that are easy to understand and yet still momentous and yet still important and relevant, and you do feel the strategy does pay off. So the fact that the game also looks great, the production is absolutely solid, there's this very smart way of packaging the components, limiting the amount of components that you have in here, and just designing the containers and everything so that they can have different roles. So to me that is very clever, very cleverly done, and I hope it's done more and more. I hope this becomes the standard, that 10 years from now we don't need to worry so much about the inserts, because the inserts are part of the game, and so now everything looks nice and smooth and tidy in the box, and probably also have fewer resources being used because of that. Dabba Walla. It is a really fun, simple family game, super easy to teach and to play, but really enjoyable, really fun.